Hey Minette, how are you? So today I have Minette Yu. I'm saying your name correctly, right?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Of Storyline. And do you mind giving a brief intro to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Minette. I'm the founder and CEO of Storeyline. We are a retail tech company that allows mission-driven consumers, socially conscious consumers, to find and discover mission-driven brands, especially those from underrepresented founders, so women and minority founders.
Wow, that's so cool. What inspired you to sort of start your company?
It's been kind of a long journey. I've always, wanted to start my own projects. So I immigrated to United States from China when I was 14, so in high school. And
Yeah.
at that time, there was a pretty big gap between, it was a huge public school in LA. And there's a big gap between what the schools offer us in terms of college readiness and what we actually need as new
Yeah.
immigrants. And so I actually saw the opportunity and I recruited teachers and multilingual students to tutor students like me.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
got a bunch of kids into college. So I think ever since then, I wanted to start something of my own and really continue helping, I would say, underrepresented or underestimated people. So that's kind of been my through line. That's been kind of the theme I've been going with ever since.
Nice, nice. So hey, what's up? So I have Junaid. He showed up in the comments. What's up, Junaid? Nice to see you.
Hey,
What's up, Nick?
Junaid.
So
Hey, Nick.
we'll have different people sort of pop up slowly. It takes a few minutes for people to pop up. What's up,
Yeah,
Travis? What's up, Kelsey? They all have live shows, and Janae says
amazing.
so cool to see a guest from California.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, I lived in California for 4 years before
Yeah.
moving to the other coast, the East Coast.
So now where are you based out of?
Um, Really nowhere. So my husband and I have actually we became digital nomads
Nice,
recently. Yeah, but we'll
nice.
be
I
back
mean,
in New York City in the
okay,
summer.
but no, that's cool. I mean, it's so interesting to see how like viable it is, right? Especially, I think 2010 we really started hearing of it,
Hmm.
and especially now more than ever. Hey, Hafsa, nice to see you.
Hi,
What's up,
Afsa.
show? Fellow East Coaster, and
Yes.
so you see, obviously 2020
Hmm.
it's been a very interesting year for founders, right?
Hmm.
What have you been sort of seeing is a trend among founders?
Trend among founders. What I have seen is just perseverance all around. So for myself, for example, like we went through pretty big pivots
Yeah.
because of COVID-19. Our original go-to-market strategy was a physical concept. So when COVID hit, obviously we couldn't go to market in that form. So it wasn't even a small curveball. It was just a wall that we really hit up against, and nobody else could do it. So we really quickly pivoted. Same thing with other founders in the community. I'm actually curious to hear your thought, like your experience through this. But
Yeah.
that's the major trends. Like a lot of founders just pivoting and really to adapt to the new normal, the new trend. And it's just a lot of perseverance. It's a lot of hard work to get through all that.
Yeah, I mean, all the like founders I know, and myself included, it's just like we pivoted to sort of take advantage of opportunity. It's just one
Mm-hmm.
of those things like what's gonna happen is gonna happen. You just have to figure out how to make it work, right? It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And you could have a business plan, and I think everybody threw their business plan out the window. You just had to, and you have to react so quick, right? And
Yeah.
react quick to the unknown. So I think like for me, I started a completely different business, but you learn a lot, you make a lot of connections, and again, the stories, right? The stories are always interesting.
Mm. Yeah, you're right that you just have to really quickly see where you're going. And, I was listening to like how I built this podcast too,
That's a
and
great podcast.
it is. It's been really fun since we're doing the road tripping, out of a car. So we've been listening to a lot of podcasts. But
Yeah,
and I think one central theme is that most founders, there's always like these pivotal moments
yeah,
where you have to change. And I think 2020 is just that. Like everybody had to really change to go where the winds are going rather than going against the wind. So that's what we did. Like we pivoted so that we'll go along with the trend where the winds are rather than going against it. So
I like that. It's like, sometimes you can't go against the wind, right? The winds are 2020 was that strong wind.
It's too strong. It'll just knock you over and then you will just, I don't know, be knocked down by the waves.
You run into issues and stuff. So now what are you kind of seeing for 2021?
2021, like,
or what are your goals for 2021?
I think I have both professional and personal goals. I think personally, so that's something that I learned from 2020 is like, so in Chinese, crisis actually it's composed of two words, danger and opportunity.
Yeah.
And I actually forgot about it. I only really focus on the danger piece. Like, when the crisis, when the pandemic hits, like, oh no, like, there's so much suffering, right? And things like we're losing our freedom and our liberty, being locked up at home. But very few people would recognize the opportunity part of it. And that's something I didn't quite pick up until a little bit later, thanks to family and friends. My company, had to pivot. I didn't have the kind of wedding reception we had planned. Yeah. So it was just these big both personal and professional milestones be kind of just like thrown out to the wayside. But the opportunity is the one that we should be focusing on. And I think there's a quote that I really like is that at a moment of crisis, ask not just what it is to be done, but also what it makes possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great perspective to sort of think about it, because it's like you learn a lot about yourself during these times, right? You learn about all the things, and we don't do it alone. We have like people around us, so it's just interesting because yes, all these things suck, but some good does come out of it, and I'm glad you're able to sort of find the good and have good things sort of happen for you. So what's the goal? What's the trend for 2021 for your business?
Yeah, it's a trend that we have seen, I would say, leading up to this point, but in 2020 had just been brought to the forefront of collective consciousness. So for me, my personal goal is really to lift up other minority entrepreneurs, especially, I would say, people of color, and then also, of course, women of color. And we're seeing a lot of consumers already supporting values that they really agree with and then shop their values. And then we're seeing that trend accelerating. So in 2021, we'll continue to really kind of ride that wave and really expand our audience who wants to put dollars where they really support. So that's something that I'm really excited about. The other one is...
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Now, I was going to say that the other thing is we do want to do something in the physical space. It really allows for a lot of creativity. And it's interesting because I come from a world of software business where a lot of things are measured by numbers. There's not a ton of creativity. It's business to business software. But with something that we're working on is that there's actually a ton of room for creativity. That's something you can do with your hands, completely changing the face of retail and also retail tech. So that's something that I'm super excited about in 2021.
So Enrique asked, what are your core values?
I love that question. There are a few central core values. One is, for me, community is absolutely at its core. And it means to have shared values and to communicate around that. So those are around equality, empowerment, health and wellness, and diversity. And I don't really mean like diversity in the typical kind of tech diversity where you appoint a Black woman to be a chief diversity officer, or you tweet out a Black square and then you wash your hands and say, okay, like corporate responsibility check. Like, I mean, actually curating and promoting whatever it is around me that represents a diversity of opinions. It could be race, it could be ethnicity, it could be gender. Like, there's a whole spectrum of that. So that's really at the core of my personal a belief system, and that I'm bringing to Storyline to embody that as well.
No, that's awesome, right? And I think you hit up a great point that diversity is just not at face value. It's what you do within, right? It is a core value, right? It's not something
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, we're gonna do this and forget about it. So now, what have you seen? Like a lot of like, have you seen a lot of consumers embrace socially conscious brands more? I feel like, especially in the last five
Mm-hmm.
years, right, social entrepreneurship has become cooler, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's something that consumers are really res- caring about more, and entrepreneurs are responding to it.
Yes. Absolutely. We're seeing such a big surge in, I would say, value-based brands. So a lot of brands now are very, very, they focus on sustainability and are
Yeah,
actually making a concerted effort to do so. I mean, there's a ton of greenwashing in that space actually, and we're very careful in like vetting companies that do that because it's very easy to say you're a sustainable company because you use, I don't know, this packaging, but the rest of it is not. But there are quite a few companies we work with that actually do what they preach, and they actually really audit their supply chain, for example, or check out the factory to work with, and they make sure that by sustainability, they also means people that the people they bring on they pay fair wages. There is a diversity on the team in terms of different attributes. So I love that.
yeah.
But it is very easy to stick on a diversity or
What
sustainable
what are some
label.
common things that you see that where they just slap on the label and it's like really apparent that they're not really diverse? And you don't have to point out any companies, but what's something?
No,
How do you
well,
sort of go about identifying whether a company is truly about the diversity life?
so I'll give you an example for. I can give you a couple of examples. So for sustainability, it's very easy to say that we're a sustainable brand. Like on
Yeah,
your Instagram handle, you can just say. I mean, any company can really claim that, but the truth always comes out when you dig a little bit deeper. So typically, I vet founders. For example, we don't just bring anyone on board to our
yeah,
platform. Like we ask, how do you source material? How do you package things? And also, like, what goals are you hoping to achieve? Typically, a really good brand, even though they're just small or just starting out, they typically have a specific goal in mind. So I'm just remembering this company that uses 100% repurposed and recycled material, even though that means their supply chain is going to be a challenge. Not
yeah,
many factories are willing to work with that type of material, but they went against all odds and made it happen. So that was really cool. Versus a different company can just say, I use, I don't know, 10% of recycled material, rest of it's still, plastic. And
yeah, yeah,
so that's just very easy to kind of see through. But it does require a bit of research and a vetting. And yeah, but it's been really fun to do that though. In terms of diversity, I've seen plenty of consumer brands who, do the black squares and then say like, I don't know,
yeah,
put a mantra on social media, promoting diversity, but just do like a super basic LinkedIn search,
yeah,
right? I mean, all of us founders, we all
yeah,
like stalk people on LinkedIn. So I would take a look at their team and to see, what do they look like. And then, oftentimes you don't see any people of color or any women on a team. So there's a little bit of an issue there, I would say, if like everybody looks the same, that a
yeah.
company didn't really care enough to make a concerted effort. So that's something that we kind of we catch. We actually disqualify quite a lot of brands because of that extra step of
Yeah.
due diligence, I would say.
No, I think that's very important. Because you see a lot of companies like I knew I worked with somebody who, sort of worked for a small agency, and the founder was all Black Lives Matter, and then when he had very good experience, very knew what he was doing, and then when it came time, pandemic, obviously revenues went down, they let him go, and
Mm-hmm.
he was like the only black guy on the team, and it kind of makes you really question like, are you really about it? Like, again, it's one of those like you can say whatever you want, but when the things happen, what are you actually doing? And then the people can kind of judge because it's not like, hey, you need to have X number of people on the team, but even just of their backgrounds, the schools they went to, their whether or not you accept people with tattoos, right? And all that
Yeah.
stuff. That goes a long way in terms of diversity. And Emmanuel says stalking is allowed in the founder community. I mean, you
Oh, I
got
do
it,
that a
right?
lot. I do that a lot. Yes.
Yeah. You gotta and Nick, you don't utilize the company page enough. I'm starting to use it more. So, Hannah's producing some good content. And
Mhm.
thank you, Kelsey, for the lovely compliments. And Jamal, yeah, Vipers roll deep. So Vipers is like the crew that we sort of support each other on LinkedIn. And yeah, so Jacob, thanks for coming by. Laura, thanks for the comments and all that. So what else has sort of been on your mind for 2021?
What has been on my mind? Um, Honestly, just like health and wellness, to be
Yeah.
honest. And then I don't mean just physical health. I mean, we know how much we all suffer, like from a mental point of view, just from being locked in and not being able to see and interact with friends for an extended period of time. So, like for me, for example, I haven't seen my parents for almost a year at this
Yeah. Where are
point.
your parents, if you don't mind me asking?
LA,
Okay.
where it's the epicenter, right? Like I mean, I lived in New York when it was the epicenter, so now it's just moving
Yeah.
around. But and that's just hard mentally. I can see how much my parents are suffering from it, not
Yeah.
being able to go outside, being super scared because they're in the age range where the most
Yeah.
susceptible. And I would say, yeah, what's for me that would be what's on top of my mind. It's just to stay healthy and then honestly not take anything for granted. And and I really think that we're seeing the end of the light. I'm just trying to be optimistic too,
Yeah.
and seeing the opportunity in all this because it also means that you can do, I don't know, more domestic road trips or
Yeah. Yeah.
going to the countryside or other places that you normally wouldn't go
Yeah.
just because you have better plans, right? So it actually has a lot of it's quite a bit of silver lining in all this.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it has opened up a lot of things for, just in general of just changing. I think work from home has definitely changed a lot, right? That's something that like, before I remember years ago, it's like finding a work from home job, unless you were in a specific area, was tough. And, so now all of a sudden it's like work from home is a standard, right? You got to get people
Mm-hmm.
into the office. Like before you had to make a
Yeah,
case for work from home.
yeah,
And because I remember 2017, I was like, I need a work from home job, right? Then I can spend more time on my business. And it was so
yeah.
hard to find
Right.
unless you had very specific experience, especially if you weren't a coder. Laura asked a good question. How do you understand creating a business if you have no business experience? I know the content, no clue about business. Do you seek help? That takes money. So what kind of advice do you have for her?
That's a really good question, Laura. And business experience, I mean, it's very broad.
Yeah.
So there's so many aspects to it, but honestly, there's no better way to gain those experience than to learn it while on the go.
Yeah.
So, for example, for me, I try to learn the ins and outs of startups by working at a startup so that I can still get paid while learning. And then once I feel I've learned enough, I decide to start my own, which is my path. But nothing will really prepare you, though, no matter
Yeah.
how much you learn, how
Yeah.
much you feel that you're ready. But I don't know. It's hard because at the end of the day, it's not just running a business is not just a skill set; it's a mindset.
It is.
As
It is.
I mean, you probably agree with me since you're running your own business that oftentimes is about kind of training yourself also to see things from different angles or see silver lining or believe in the grind. Like a lot of it is that you set a strategy. I think people probably put too much emphasis on strategy because it sounds very sexy, right? We have consultants that say, hey, strategy consultant, but oftentimes what happens is you set a strategy and then you just execute against it, and every day is many steps combined into one. Every day you do some mundane task and you just keep on chipping away. So for example, I do sales, right? Like I never
Yeah.
sold anything before, never really
Yeah.
asked for money. So to do that, you have to do the sales yourself. You have to go
Yeah.
out and then get customers. And now I'm fundraising, so I'm asking investors. I'm getting very comfortable talking about money. So all that is just practice. So I guess
Yeah.
my experience, my advice for Laura would be to you can learn all you want, but ultimately, start from a small side project and just learn while doing it.
Yeah, I think the side project is a very important good thing because you learn things as you go. I will say I learned a lot just by reading about other people's experiences, like the how I built
Yeah,
this. You kind of learn how did they get to the
exactly.
next level.
Yeah.
Read about the struggles of other businesses. I mean, me personally, what really helped was if there was something I did not know, there was 100% a podcast episode on that topic. And then as you learn more topics, you go and then you can kind of go and then you have issues, you run into issues, listen to things, read things. And I think getting a mentor, surrounding yourself with good
Yeah.
people,
Hmm.
because a lot of times business ownership can be so lonely that
Hmm. Oh,
you
yeah.
think that it's hard to find. But I think surrounding yourself with entrepreneurs really helps you kind of realize that you're not alone, and other entrepreneurs kind of give me a lot of ideas on what to do.
Hmm. Exactly. So yeah, you just have to really. I'm also reading through a lot of
Yeah, yeah.
comments here. This is actually thanks everyone for like commenting and interacting because I really like the comments. There is reading. So for example, you can always
Yeah.
listen to How I Built This. I personally benefit a lot because, there's definitely a time where I was thinking like, okay, like why am I doing this? Like doesn't really go the way I wanted or something else came along. But it's always that persistence.
Yeah.
And the one really good quote from one of the of the podcast episodes is that a business only fails when the entrepreneur gives up.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
I like
love
that.
that. And that's such a motivation quote for me. As a founder, I cannot just easily give up. And that it's
Yeah.
so easy. It's so easy to give up, but
Yeah.
it's a mindset that you have to just persevere through the plateaus, the harder stretches. That builds character.
Yeah. So
And
Faisal asks, is there systemic racism in the big tech corporations hiring process? I'll kind of go the other way. There are always biases in the sense of I'll kind of approach it,
mhm,
right? Like big tech favors people from certain schools. So if
mhm,
you went to like a Stanford, a Harvard, a Columbia, right?
mhm,
So you're gonna see that. And one of the best ways to get into a company is through referrals. And who do most people refer? People they went to school with, right? So you get that bias of, hey, they all come from certain schools. So that does cause a certain bias that you see it all the time that founders who went to certain schools get more funding, get all that. And it is harder, right? That if you went to, if I went to Columbia Business Schools, it's so much easier to get these intros versus if you are a dropout. So there is, again, there's always sort of bias in that angle. And, we as a society just have to kind of be more open to people of different backgrounds.
it is true. And I will also offer a little bit more nuanced point of view because I
Yeah.
did go to Harvard.
Yeah. And I went to Columbia. So
Yeah, I think one thing that's for me that's been super interesting is I went to a super large public school,
yeah.
mostly Asian and Hispanics.
Where'd you go?
I went to Marquette High School. It's located in Monterey Park,
Okay.
California, which is near LA, and sends very few kids to private
Yeah.
schools each year.
Yeah. Yeah.
But honestly, like even in Harvard, it's such a diverse kind of world because we have the sons and daughters of the Goldman Sachs. Actually,
Yeah.
like the son of Goldman Sachs, the CEO did go to Harvard.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think same year as me.
Yeah.
Um,
Interesting.
right, but then at the same time, there's a public school kid like me, right? So I
Yeah.
never knew
Yeah.
that private schools existed. So even then, like having just a name doesn't necessarily open all the doors.
Yeah.
Some people have it easy. Their dad, plays golf with their friends, and that's actually how a lot of founders get money. That's how
Yeah.
kind of angel investors,
Yeah.
the network started, right? Like if you look at the statistics, most of the capital network is, I would say like 85% white men in certain income level. That's just the reality. But for someone outside of that network to come to Harvard and see that exists, but I don't necessarily have access to that.
Yeah.
It's quite jarring to know that I'm kind of in, but also outside that system.
Yeah. It's like a bubble that you can see through. You're there. You can touch it, but getting in is a totally different
Getting
story.
in is a different story. But that also means I just have to work harder, right? Like I talk to different angel investors. Luckily, there are more women investors now. There are more minority investors as people start to get more wealthy. That all comes down to the trickle down effect. But that just means that we have to work harder. Same thing with people who don't come from Harvard or Columbia's of the world.
Yeah.
It just means that you have to put yourself out there a little bit more and talk to people, really hone up your sales skills. To be honest, like that's a given. And after this whole process, I always think that if there's one skill you need to really pick up, it's probably about how you sell. And then it's not just hey, I'm going to sell you a knife or I'm going to sell you a car, but like how to tailor the message toward their intended audience and have a clear call to action. So all that is going to be beneficial.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think to add on to that, it's that one thing is that you can always work on your communication and your sales and your presentation skills. That's something I'm going to say that like going to Columbia, like a lot of people did not work on their communication and presentation skills. Like it was sort of like, oh yeah, I'll just sort of network. But they talk about the network, but the real network is the network you actually build by engaging and by being proactive. And no school can do that for you, right? Like, yeah, the school just makes it easy. You meet some people, but at the end of the day, once you graduate, the ball changes. And then at that point, regardless of where you went to school, nothing stops you from going to online meetups. Nothing stops you from really reaching out and making a difference. You can do so much from all these areas. And hey, Brian, nice to see you. We got to catch up. I called him. He didn't pick up. He called me. I think I was sleeping and all that stuff. So it's just very important to make sure that you do your part to, overcome these things and sort of because as you overcome these things, you sort of make it easier. And then I think Nick said that he's bad at golf. So one thing is I refuse to play golf. I just feel like it's too much of a too much of a rich man sport. I'll play if I could play golf. That means I could jog. I could do a lot of other things. I don't know. I find it too slow paced. That's my thing. So hopefully, and Enrique says, do you feel you have an edge because you went to Harvard?
I'm not going to pretend that's not the case. As a matter of fact, when I first got in high school, I actually deliberately hid the fact that I got accepted into Harvard.
You just said I got into a school in the Northeast. That's what they say.
It's a very typical answer because, to be honest, we actually felt embarrassed.
Yeah.
I was feeling embarrassed because I was the only one who got into Harvard that year, and we don't really produce that many private school kids out of that large public school. So for me to say that, it's almost like I'm showing off, but I want to be modest and just keep it in the lay low. But I have really learned to kind of own up to that and say that, yeah, sure, I'm an entrepreneur. I gotta play the best hand I'm dealt with, and I'm already dealt with a lot of odds are stacked against me, right? Like entrepreneurship is hard, and being a woman and a woman of color entrepreneur is extremely hard. So I gotta do whatever I can get my hands on. So I actually no longer feel embarrassed. I own up to the fact. I just say, as a matter of fact, yes, I went to Harvard. I studied economics, graduated back in 2013. I worked in startups, and now I'm starting my own company. So it's it's just something that came to me a little bit more naturally, and I don't feel uncomfortable about that anymore. And it's about does it help open doors? Absolutely. I think it is the network, and I want to utilize that network to the fullest I can because I got the chance to use it. I was lucky enough to get accepted, and I want to be able to pay back as well through my work. And that's also why both raising funds, but also hope to aspire to be an angel investor myself so that I can help other entrepreneurs who didn't really have access to capital to get more capital. And it really goes around the circle.
Yeah, I like that. And someone asked, I think, do you mean to say only people with the degree can make the mark? I mean, no, we're not saying that.
No.
In fact, I work with people without degrees all the time. And again, they make their mark too. Just, again, you have to sort of work with your hand and, do what you can. And hey, Ardia, nice to see you. What's up, Gabriel? Nice to see you. Yes, Minette has a lot of interesting stories to share. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's like, I don't really bring up the fact that I went to sort of Columbia. Like, it'll come here and there, but I mean, really, oftentimes people look at it like, wow, you want to call me? I was like, yeah, they kind of look at most people. You're going to realize, I think, like, once you're active on LinkedIn, you're going to realize most people know you, but they don't look at your profile. Like,
Uh-huh.
they'll know your character, they'll know what you're about, maybe they'll know your headline and stuff, but they won't look at your profile, and you have to scroll down. And I like it that way because then it's like people like me for who I am. And, that's just like a little thing. I mean, it sort of gave me perspective, just like how you were like, hey, the Goldman Sachs CEO's son was at, I went to school. They kind of gave me perspective on just like the opportunities and advantages some people had. I knew some people who, as soon as they graduated, their dad started a company, hired a CEO, and made them a director, right? Stuff like that. Like, it's really crazy. Just like the amount of, I knew people whose parents were paying $5,000 a month for rent,
Yeah.
and who, as soon as they had referrals and left and right. And you kind of realize, okay, like, these people have these advantages. How do you sort of make these advantages for other people, right? Like, what do they have to do, right? Because it does take longer. It's not handed to them, but it is possible. You can start, um, you know, mentoring. Like, I found a mentor, and that really helped me, right? Saved years of learning, and that her network became my network, and my network became her
Yeah.
network. And it's just like all these types of things you kind of learn, and it teaches you a lot, right? Because yes, we can be like, hey, it's unfair, but unfortunately
Mhm.
it is what it is. That's how it's going to be. But you can
Yeah.
open up the door for yourself and other people if you figure out and you're strategic.
Absolutely. And thanks for sharing that too. Yeah, definitely. So it is, it is what it is. Life isn't fair. Doesn't mean that it can get more fair through your own effort. We all kind of born at a different starting line. So I would just say that like go for whatever advantage you can really get your hands on. Especially if you're, switching to a different career, if you don't come from a traditional background to be considered by a big tech company. But the truth is that you can get experience through startups or medium-sized companies, eventually work your way up into big companies. And by the way, I really don't think that you really need to get into big companies to be a
Yeah.
great programmer or a great product manager or a great designer. Some of these are also like more for vanity. If
Yeah.
you're not putting your mind in if it's not the right reason, if you're just saying, okay,
Yeah.
I just want that stamp of approval, but there's many different paths you can explore. And people with like Harvard degrees, some of my friends would go into untraditional fields too, where the
Yeah.
Harvard degree is not really necessary.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's really what you make of it at the end of the
Yeah.
day.
No, I mean, and I think it's very good because you have to sort of know what advantages people have so that you
Right.
can figure out how to make things more equitable in the future. And yes, Jamal, this is on playback. If you gotta sort of, come back, feel free. And confidence and emotional intelligence go a long way. And that's
Oh yeah.
something that I really emphasize. A lot of students who may not go to, other places, right, who
Hmm.
did not go to the top places, kind of show them the importance of networking, show them how to build a network. Because it's like
Hmm.
you start building a network at 18, right? You start in your college. You just never
Yeah.
know. Because, for example, I got my first job because of a referral of someone I went to in college. He used to study. I used to help him study. He was an older guy. His neighbor was higher up at MetLife. That got me the interview. Now, because I got the interview, my two business partners, one was an older guy and one was my friend, they helped me with my mock interviews, right? So they helped me do
Hmm.
that. Then when I went, I had the best mock interview. I mean, the best actual interview because they said, hey, you were really polished and you knew your stuff and all that. So it's like all these little things. It's like everybody sort of help, we got to help each other to sort of make it more equitable. And it's just through that, it's like now two of the people I also knew him earlier. Two of the people became my business partners from college. Right.
That's
So it's
amazing.
like all these things, right? How it happens. It's just like the networking, right? And then just like people that you meet, come across. Now it's like I'm able to go to an office because my friend who I met through my business partner, right? So
Yeah.
it's like all these things, they just sort of build up. And it's like, if you put your mind to it, you know your strengths and weaknesses, you can really make it happen.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Going to Harvard or Columbia is not a golden ticket by any means. I mean, I know
Yeah.
plenty of people who didn't take advantage of the network at all,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit waste of the name, to be honest, if you don't take full advantage. But at the same time, like there's kind of going back to your point about emotional intelligence, by the way, that I think a great way to network, it has worked out really well for me at least, is that before I ask for something, I try to offer something first. And I want to provide value first, no matter how small it might be. So it could be that to make help making an intro,
Yeah.
or help, I don't know, help doing something, because I know that I benefit so much from people making intros for me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Intros go such a long
the fact
way.
that we're talking together through a common friend, Jacob. I don't know if Jacob is on here. Thank you for
Yeah.
connecting us. I mean, it's all these like connections and intros, right? I I take full advantage of that. So I had to really fight for it too. And but yeah, a great way to network would be to do that sort of thing. You know, try to provide value in return, because that means that that person will feel very happy about helping you, and will also refer you to more people down the road. And it's always a give and take, I think, at the end of the day. And for some of you, even though you might think that, I don't know, like you might not have that much to offer. I don't know what stage you're in. I'm just talking
Yeah.
in general, because I certainly felt that way earlier on. It's like, okay, I'm so new, so green from college. What do I have that I can offer? But the truth is, you probably do. You can say, I don't know, happy to do a mock interview, happy to provide feedback, different kind of things, facial expression, gesture. There's a lot of things that go into having a great interview or a great resume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I think you hit a great point that you don't have to do a lot to really make an impact on someone. Like you may think, hey, I'm just introducing them to my friend. To your friend, it's like, wow, I really needed to meet this person. And to that new person you met, it's like, wow, we needed to connect. It's like so many things can happen. And I love what Nick had to say, where what did he say? He said, show up and help people without expecting anything in return.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah.
it's funny. It's like, that's the best way to get a return. That's how you meet so many great people. That's how you connect. And who connected us? I'm trying to think. Jake, right? Jake.
Yes.
And you know, that's networking. I went to high school with him, and you know, it's funny. We
Yeah.
used to be on the
Jake and
same
you went to
bus.
high school. I know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we went to
Yeah.
high school with him. You know, we kept in touch, and I think we ended up getting back in touch because another friend from high school, you know, him and I reconnected. So it's just interesting, right? How these things happen, and it's like
Yeah.
you just got to really put effort at it, and it really goes a long way.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I would just say like be intentional about it too. I know that's very easy to like not network, especially like in the, you know, when we're all remote.
Yeah,
You know, how do you meet people, right? We can no longer just go to meet up and just chat up
yeah,
people, or going to a tech event and meet like-minded people. It definitely takes a bit more intentional networking. You can
yeah,
do that through LinkedIn, not, you know, always a great platform to do that. And the other way is to just get intros to interesting people, and then have that person to refer you to a few more people. I've had a lot of great success through networking techniques like that. Always
yeah.
like word of mouth, things like that.
And the thing is, you only need a small network to start. It's not like you
Yeah,
need a huge network, right?
right.
Because the thing is, your friends know more people than you always, right? Because you have 5 friends, typically they'll you add it up to some, and they'll know different people that you don't know,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And it just goes so far by constantly just going out there doing things. And I see people network on TikTok, on Instagram. It's just you support others, you know, you get in contact, you just never know where things can lead.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jamal saying takes time, intention, and being proactive with others in mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It does, you know, it does take a bit of time, because you need to be like proactive in seeking some of those out. But I think it's really worth it. A lot of opportunities kind of come in a serendipitous way. You just never really know. And I think that's the beauty of it too.
Yeah. And I think Gabriel, he says, I found my tribe by looking at the communities that I wanted to be a part of. I think that's very, if you want to be an entrepreneur, join entrepreneur groups, right?
Hmm.
Kind of learn from them, kind of learn what they go through, kind of, right?
Yeah.
That's one of the best ways to sort of meet a co-founder. And
Hmm.
hey, Jake's here.
And see,
Jake,
oh,
Jake is here. What's up, Jake? Thanks for stopping by. It's so funny.
AJ.
Yeah, Jake is so cool. Congrats on getting married. I think, did he post something sonogram? I don't know, but Jake, congrats. Um, all that. So
Congrats.
now what is sort of what have you learned about yourself in 2020? Like what's something that cuz I think everybody learned a lot about themselves, right? They got
Mhm.
pushed and you sort of figured out would you right?
Something I learned by myself is that I feel like I didn't recognize the opportunity part of the crisis soon enough. I
Yeah.
felt like I actually didn't like pivot earlier, like or sooner.
Yeah.
It took me, I would say like a few days to really kind of see what's happening, and then also kind of like mourn kind of the almost like quote unquote death of the first go to market kind of form a bit, and because it just happened so suddenly and in such a kind of decisive manner too, right? So just locked down, nobody can go anywhere.
Yeah.
That's something I kind of learned by myself that has been such a tremendous learning and self-discovery process
Yeah.
is that I I know that going forward when when crisis or just unexpected things happen, I would be more alert
Yeah.
to the opportunity part of the crisis, less on the negative parts of it.
No, and I think that's very important. I think I was fortunate enough to catch it real early. I think in like March.
Mhm.
That was still relatively early. But you know, the beauty of pivoting is like, look, it's the only too late is never, right? That's too
Mhm.
late. But you can always sort of pivot earlier. I mean, pivot anytime. It doesn't matter whether you're a few months in. And yeah, no, I mean, look, I enjoy Travis. So I know their names. So Travis, I enjoy the emoji comments. And you know, for some, you know, I think some it was a blessing in disguise in some ways, right? That we have
Oh
to
yeah.
really just figure things out, figure how to adapt, and it's like, and we just know every year after that is gonna be easier. So
Yeah, no, definitely. I love that comment, Eric. The pandemic was a blessing in disguise. I think that's absolutely true because I feel like it, and not just the pandemic, but also all the protests and everything
yeah,
that's kind of happening. I feel like it's kind of peeling up the band-aid off, right? Like we've been having all these issues, the lack of medical infrastructure or
yeah,
systemic racism and lack of
yeah,
representation in both entrepreneurship, investing, tech, all
yeah,
that. So I think this year's events kind of laid it bare and then kind of brought it to people's consciousness and to think that, oh, okay, it actually is kind of ugly. It's not as
yeah,
beautiful, pretty as we thought it would be,
yeah,
and it forces us to take action. So, and it's interesting because I'm also reading through some of the historical events that happened in the
yeah,
past, and it does seem like most progress happened after some major disasters or crisis,
yeah,
when the old infrastructure is kind of gone,
yeah,
and now you have to put in new things. But it actually
yeah,
brings this kind of renaissance of new way of looking at things and executing things. So, like human society has actually progressed, like took leaps and bounds after each of these major
yeah.
events. So I absolutely agree with that statement.
Yeah. And I think Jasper says, you know, thanks for stopping by. I'm really glad you stopped by. She said, I wish her parents attended these live sessions after because they make their children. You know, unfortunately, I find that parents are like very hard to. Some parents are very hard to please. Like I know a friend, right? He's Chinese.
Uh-huh.
He made $500,000 after his profit, his net income, because he sells on Amazon, all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
But his parents aren't happy because he's not like a doctor or something. So, you know, unfortunately, depending on how your parents are, sometimes parents have a very fixed mindset of what's successful, what's not. Thankfully, my parents are okay with that. But, you know, sometimes some parents can definitely be tough on kids.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I think so. It's interesting because I was just talking to my husband about this too. Like I don't really care if my kids go to Harvard or not.
Yeah.
I think that ultimately it's a character or mindset
Yeah.
and emotional intelligence that will get a person really far in whatever they
Definitely.
do. So a brand name really adds, only opens doors in pretty short time frame, like immediately after you graduate, especially. But as you
Yeah.
progress a little bit longer into the future, it kind of just dilutes the value.
Yeah.
So
Because once you're like 40, you know, why are you talking about you went to Harvard when you were
yeah, like
22?
20 years ago, exactly.
And and it really puts down your other accomplishments, because if that's your biggest accomplishment, like, would you, it's more about what you do after,
Hmm.
right? And it really changes things. And I think, a lot of new technologies and a lot of things have popped up, and I think one thing I learned about technology, there's this one quote. It says technology never moves backwards, right? So I think it changed for a lot of corporations. Now it's like remote work is more acceptable.
Hmm.
All these things are, you don't have to travel as much. You don't have to do all these things. So, shifting sort of their priorities, shifting all
Right.
that. And, you kind of learn that, I think the pandemic has also exposed bad managers, right? Because now you
Yeah.
can't like blame it on this. It's like, hey, there's a track record, there's communication. So now it's like you have to be a good manager to succeed, right? Not someone who's like micromanaging and all that. Because
Mhm.
if you say, hey, I got 50 emails from my boss, that's just like, why is anyone sending 50 emails, right? There's something
Right.
wrong there.
Right. Yeah, no, definitely. And I think RK is saying we need to teach our kids finances, selling, emotional intelligence, and they need to be creative.
Yeah.
Definitely. Finance is another kind of area that I personally didn't really get a lot of lessons on. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
Asian people don't really like talking
It's
about
just
money with
save
their
money
kids.
and don't spend, right? That's it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just
I
like
mean, it's not bad. That's what it starts from, but then it does get more complicated than that.
it gets a little bit more complicated. So like a lot of that, right? I'm sure that both of us probably had to like learn from the ground up, like reading books. I don't know,
Yeah.
just seeing the money grow in the bank account. I mean, it is a great feeling, but at the same time, it's also like taking a little bit of risk
Yeah.
with the money investment.
You
I
have to,
don't know.
right? Because no
Yeah,
risk, no reward. As a founder, yeah, save when you earn, but you also have to reinvest. You also have to be
yeah,
strategic, or else
yeah,
you'll never grow, or you'll grow way too slow.
exactly. You do have to make some bets for sure, like educated bets, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I really agree. Like finances, selling, emotional intelligence. I mean, all those are like core skill sets that will carry you really far in whatever you do. So I love that comment.
Yeah. No, I mean, you have to take calculated risk. I think. What are some calculated risks that you took in your sort of business, in your journey?
Oh, I mean, the fact that I, quit my full time job, that was a calculated risk. And that was because I had enough personal savings. I mean, I know that it's so common for business to fail. So I'm
Yeah.
not like really wide eyed, bushy tailed and saying, hey, I'm going to be the next Zuckerberg 100%, right?
Yeah.
And just banking on, getting, becoming rich through that. But it's a calculated risk because I kind of calculate my personal runway. My husband has a steady job. That
Yeah.
was for me. That has to be there because my
Yeah. Yeah.
family is not rich, so they're not going to be a safety net for me,
Yeah.
unlike
Yeah.
a lot of other founders. So that was probably the biggest calculated risk. I mean, the other ones are like with everything you do, like every initiative that I'm taking with Storyline, it's a calculated risk because that entails opportunity cost. So that's
Yeah.
the inner economist in me saying every decision you make, there is an alternative, I guess,
Yeah.
in parallel universe that you could have used that money and resource to do something else. But I chose this path because of all the scenarios based on the data or information I have, this is the best decision. But every single decision is still a calculated risk at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
No, I mean, you just have to, or else. I mean, I've definitely taken a lot of risk, and I think one of the reasons I was able to, because I lived at home, right? A lot of people, they're like, hey, you move out, and I tell founders, it's like, look, the longer you can sort of stay at home, the longer you can, because again, it's saving up the capital. And a lot of
Mm,
tech founders, if you look at their background, they come from multifamilies, right? They
yeah,
never risk being homeless, they never risk really being poor, right? They can always go back to a huge basement, right? So
that
it's,
is true.
they have that. So, and if you look at a lot of entrepreneurs, the average age of an entrepreneur is actually over 50, and
Hmm.
it's like 53, 54. And it's because what happens, you have at that age, you have a lot of experience,
Right.
you have a lot of capital. Typically, that's also the age where your kids are old enough
Hmm.
that they're okay. So, so it's, that plays a factor. So you want to set yourself up in a position where you can do that and you want to take risk. And I think you mentioned, your husband having the full-time job and having the personal savings. That's why it's like, look, make sure you save what you can, you start investing, you start being strategic. It will make such a big difference. And Gabriel asked, what has been your biggest achievement to date during this pandemic? Have you met any of your entrepreneurial goals? What were the goals, and were you able to sort of meet them?
Yeah, my biggest achievement, I would say, is to not give up.
Yeah.
I think it's super easy to give up, especially when like a huge thing kind of hits you and the business on multiple from multiple sides. So during those few months, I would say between like March and I don't know July, which is 4 month period of time, right? Like that's
Yeah.
when everything is in flux and it's
Yeah.
not very clear about the direction. So I think that that was probably some of the toughest periods where I'm trying to see, should I keep on going with this thing? Should I lay low until I
Yeah.
can revive this business model? Should I pivot? Should I get a full-time job? I have been a product manager my whole career. It's a well-paying job. It's
Yeah.
cushy, right? It's an office job. That's always kind of a opportunity cost I'm incurring by
Yeah.
pursuing this journey. But through pivoting, and then I also at the time got accepted into an accelerator program. So I would say that was probably my biggest accomplishment. Of course, I can say on and on about the fact that I built a team, I recruited advisors, built a product, went to market, all that. But for
Yeah.
me, the biggest achievement is the fact that I didn't give up, but rather I adapted and faced a challenge and found a way to ride the tailwind rather than hit with a headwind. So pivoting to catch a different wind and not give up and stay on the surfboard, so to speak, is has worked out really well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think Faisal asked, how'd you afford tuition? Because I know like one thing is like Columbia was super expensive. I don't, but I know Harvard is pretty generous when it comes to undergrad financial aid, right?
Yeah, I'm really grateful. I didn't really have to pay a single penny for my
That's good.
tuition because of my financial situation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the one thing I will say the Ivy Leagues are great about that people who make under a certain amount, because look, I only pay whatever 36 credits, and it's like it's still it's actually one of the reasons I didn't quit my job earlier, right? Because I had the student loans and all that.
Hmm.
It really impacts a lot of people. So I mean, that's awesome. I'm glad you're sort of able to do that. Now,
Yeah.
what is like what are you sort of thinking about your company's future, right? You have the 2021.
Hmm.
What do you want to do when, whenever things, let's say, go back to normal, right?
Hmm.
And, whenever, let's say, this thing dies down, who knows when it's going to be? What are your sort of plans?
Yeah, so we've got really big plans on the horizon, and I'm personally super bullish on the like economic outlook, but also all the trends that Storyline is kind of
Yeah.
riding on. And so, for example, like right now, I'm fundraising, so that's something I'm really looking forward to. It's actually
Yeah.
something I dreaded for a long period of time, just because, kind of going back to some of the topics we covered, right? Like a lot of people are not surrounded by a great capital network. So for
Yeah.
me, I had to do a ton of work just to reach people with capital.
Yeah.
So that's why I dreaded that for a long time. I always think, oh, what if I don't know people,
Yeah.
or and this is coming from someone who went to Harvard, right? So, and but that's something I got very comfortable with, and it's just something. It's a mindset shift from a mindset of scarcity to a mindset of abundance,
Yeah.
and that's I thought I will carry that mindset into 2021, and that's something I'm really looking forward to in 2021.
All right. Let's slowly start to sort of wrap up. Any final questions from the audience? And no, I just want to thank you for your time. I hope you had
Yeah,
fun. Is it
it's super
you
fun.
do Instagram Live, right? How would people follow you?
Yeah, let me.
Yeah,
Would
just
it
tell me,
would it be
type it in the
helpful?
chat and I'll copy and paste it.
Okay, so it's story.line. So I'm also gonna copy. Can I post on chat?
Yeah, no, this chat you cannot. So
Oh,
paste
okay.
it here, and then I'm gonna post it on LinkedIn so everyone can see it.
Oh, let me just private message you right now then.
Yeah. So we definitely want to follow you and all that. So let's see comments. So Gabriel, thank you for putting the link tree. Unfortunately, I can't copy and paste it.
Oh,
Okay,
thank you.
he has
Thank
it. So
you
you
for
have the
looking.
link tree with the stuff. So you're on what? Follow on IG. What else?
Yeah, follow us on IG. So that's at story.line. And
Yeah.
then the website is story-line.com.
Okay.
And then you included, a lot of people have recommended I purchase Storeyline.com without the dash. So I'm
Good
gonna
luck with that. Look,
take out my
there's a way.
negotiation
I'm
skill
telling
set.
you know what? I was reading about how to do this. This is what you do. You create like a Hotmail, Gmail, a burner account. You use a burner account. Whatever they have a price that they're asking for.
They did have a price, yeah.
Do you mind sharing that price?
I think it's like 4,000 or something like that.
Okay.
Or
So
3,000.
what you do,
Yeah.
you offer 50%.
Right.
Right? You offer
Yeah.
50% or you offer 1,500. You say, hey, this is my budget. This is what I have. This is actually outside my budget, but I just want to be respectful. This is what I have. Look, you get either no or no answer, right? But
Yeah.
what that does is next time you go a different burner, now you go 3,000 or
Mhm.
2,500. But what that does is it anchors the price
Mhm.
down from 4,000 to the initial 2,000, and you have more leeway.
Right.
All right. So just, that's a good way to do that. And thank you, Gabriel, for the live link. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, connect with Minette.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Yeah, definitely follow me on Instagram. And I also do weekly live chats, just on Instagram, not on LinkedIn, although I'm going to try to do on LinkedIn.
Try to get live. I hope you get live.
Yeah, and it's been super fun to also interview different founders and talk about their journeys. For me, it's a little bit different focus.
Story_line? Yes. Or story.line.
Oh, do you mean for Instagram?
Oh, yeah, I found it.
Yeah, it's story.line.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, no, this has been super fun. And thank you for having me. And also, this is super, super interactive live chat. Really appreciate all the comments, the questions. And
yeah, I mean, I gotta look, I got a good crew, so I can't, I really appreciate them. And, they always stick out for me. And, like, they have their, you should follow their live show. Gabriel has a good live show.
I will.
Ronan Janitor, so his name is Nick Lozano. Kelsey had her first live tour. She went on like 8 different lives in 8 days and all that stuff. It's interesting. LinkedIn has a great crew, and it's like, Hafsa's, I think, in Singapore. Jasbir sent you a connection. No, Jasbir, thank you so much for stopping by. Hopefully you got a lot of value and all that. And Hafsa says she was captivated. Thank you so much on that.
No Instagram here. That's totally fine. I'm actually looking for kind of like the stream sites where I can simultaneously stream to multiple. That makes total sense.
Yeah. The thing is, I think Instagram is standalone. I like, if for this one, like this live is going out to like, it goes to it goes to my profile, a group that doesn't have many members, and a page that doesn't have many followers. But I have up to 8 destinations, and then it has my LinkedIn, it has my YouTube and Twitch. So Twitch is also, it's good to have. I'm gonna share your website. Let me put that on. So here's her website. Thank you so much for coming by. Thanks you to the audience just being supportive and being great. I appreciate each and every one of you. I think, let me see, am I going live again this week? I don't know. Maybe. No, I don't know. I have time to go live, I guess. But yeah, someone will request me to go live, and I'll figure it out. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Minette, for sharing, and we'll definitely do this again.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm great. Would be great to connect with some of you participants on LinkedIn. So please send me some requests, and I can't wait to connect with the guys.
Awesome.